Danielle Smith pushing back against the federal government and taking a stance against methane emissions regulations. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Danielle Smith is a premier that I not only admire, but one that I am definitely grateful to have for the province of Alberta. She's shown from the get-go that the votes that we gave to her for her mandate were definitely put in the right place, as she continuously does what Fat Stalin, or Jason Kenney as I used to call him, said he would do when he was premier of Alberta, and yet all he did was write a couple of letters. Danielle Smith, of course, going to bat for the province of Alberta by pushing forward different legislations to protect Alberta citizens. She now wants to, of course, talk about bringing in Alberta's own pension plan and getting away from the government's Canada pension plan. She's talked many times about ridding the RCMP or doing other things to constitute a better Alberta for everybody, and also recently invoking the Sovereignty Act against the federal government. With two federal court wins in terms of the plastic bans and the No More Pipelines bill, we've had Danielle Smith on the channel to talk about the victories for Alberta and what it means going ahead. I strongly suggest you go and watch that interview back a few weeks ago. It was fantastic to have Danielle on the channel. But recently, we've seen with those federal court wins that the federal government comes back, namely Justin Trudeau and Steven Guibeault, and, they've made it very well known that they don't intend to follow the rule of law, that they're going to push back no matter what. The law, of course, as we've seen to the Liberals, has no relevancy to the Liberal Party of Canada. They don't want to follow the law. They just want to do whatever it is they want to do in the name of virtue signaling, and we're simply supposed to accept it. And that is the most alarming thing out of everything. But I wanted to go into this tweet that Danielle Smith put forward, that was forwarded to me, here that says, I've issued the following statement with the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, on the federal government's proposed methane emissions regulations. Now, Rebecca Schultz does a fine job as the Minister of the Environment for Alberta. She's also in my jurisdiction, my riding. I will happily admit that I voted for her, and I'm still trying to work a way to get her onto the channel to talk about these things. And hopefully, again, it's scheduling, it's the holidays. Hopefully in the new year, we can get Rebecca on the show. I'd really like to discuss some of these policies and what it means for Albertans going forward. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see Rebecca Schultz on the show. But the federal government has unilaterally established new methane emissions rules and targets to help with international headlines. Again, that's the key part of this statement, is that this is nothing more than a virtue signal. It does nothing to benefit our country. It does nothing to benefit our prosperity, our GDP. It does nothing to help anybody. In fact, if anything, these draconian rules, when it comes to farmers' fertilizer, when it comes to carbon tax, it's all a scam, and it's all done in the name of looking good while lining pockets. We've seen that when you talk about billion-dollar slush funds. Instead of building on Alberta's award-winning approach, Ottawa wants to replace it with costly, dangerous, and unconstitutional new federal regulations that won't benefit anyone beyond Environment and Climate Change Minister Steven Guibeault's post office career. Again, padding pockets. Also, Steven Guibeault, I still struggle to understand how a convicted felon can hold office in Parliament. Managing emissions from Alberta's oil and gas industry is our constitutional right and responsibility, not Ottawa's, and we're getting the job done. Using a province-led approach, Alberta has already reduced methane emissions from the oil and gas sector by 45%, hitting our target 3 years early. And we're just getting started. Of course, Danielle Smith was also in Dubai earlier this week. She was promoting Alberta Energy Oil, and she's since made announcements about new projects that are coming to Alberta that are going to be clean energy for the province, yet the federal government doesn't seem to care. And again, I'll be covering those project announcements later on in the channel. It's alarming at best. But Danielle continues, meanwhile, not only is it illegal for Ottawa to attempt to regulate our industries in this manner, Ottawa hasn't even hit one of its past arbitrary or unscientific emissions targets, largely because it has little to no credible expertise regulating the natural resource, agricultural, and other industry sectors in this space. Very good point. Ottawa could have helped us by reducing emissions with joint incentive programs in line with Alberta's emissions reduction and energy development plan. Now, it's important we talk about these things because aside from carbon taxes and aside from no more pipelines bills, Alberta's always been on the forefront of saying we need to do things clean, we need to do things by environmental standards and to better the environment. There's a lot of mass confusion when it comes to the province of Alberta that we're just dirty oil pigs and that we don't care about the environment at all. And you've seen that when um, have not celebrities like James Cameron, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jane Fonda all come here to essentially crap all over Alberta's oil industry and talk about the oil sands. You can remember Leonardo DiCaprio's virtue signaling Oscar speech where he talked about he couldn't believe the weather changes and the climate change in Alberta, yet he was referring to the warm Chinook winds that come over the mountains and have for thousands of years. Um, he's out to lunch. He doesn't know Alberta's culture. He doesn't know anything about Alberta in general to even do his research before making that speech. I also found that speech very hypocritical because right after he made that speech about how we need to look after the earth and our resources and not destroy the environment, well, he went vacationing on a yacht with a bunch of questionably aged women that burns tons of fuel and oil, owned by an oil tycoon in Saudi Arabia, I might add. I digress. As we move on, when they show these videos of James Cameron or any of these guys touring the oil sands in helicopters, they always focus and want to get shots of oil sands projects currently in development, the fracking and mining that goes on, and how dirty and decimated the land looks. But what they don't cover in any of those documentaries is that as soon as that finishes up, those projects actually restore and leave the land 99% of the time in better condition than it was found. In fact, there are many sites that were once used for fracking that are now animal preserves and places where people aren't allowed to, I guess, go up and dig up the land or develop on that land. It's left for wildlife and the growth of our environment. Ottawa could have. Oh, sorry. We've already got the development plan. It could have listened to the Supreme Court's declaration that the Impact Assessment Act and unconstitutional and abandoned this kind of arrogant and ineffective scheme. Instead, these new regulations threaten our successful province-led approach and impede good work that's already underway. I apologize. My Lysdexia is getting in the way here. Once again, the federal government is setting unrealistic targets and timelines. Infrastructure can only be updated as quickly as technology allows. Very strong point. For example, Alberta will not accept nor impose a total ban on flaring at this time. It is a critical health and safety practice during production. Any regulation that completely prohibits this is putting lives at risk. A total ban would also be costly, resulting in shut-ins and loss of production. This approach will also cost tens of billions in infrastructure upgrades, yet Ottawa has provided virtually no financial support to do so. Thousands of Albertans could be put out of work in the coming years due to these costly regulations. A federal government willing to invest $37.7 billion into just 3 battery plants in Ontario and Quebec cannot credibly refuse to provide tax credits and financial incentives for producers in Alberta and Saskatchewan to assist with achieving a carbon-neutral economy by 2050. And it's a very strong point. It's no secret. Justin Trudeau hates Alberta. He hates the West. He's been very vocal about it, showing favoritism to the East. I mean, look at the carbon tax cutoffs. It's vote buying. It has nothing to do with his concerns about the country. Justin Trudeau hates Canada. For years, Alberta, not Ottawa, has done the hard work and achieved results. We strongly support reducing methane emissions and have invested tens of millions in developing these technologies. Minister Guibeault must work with us, not against us, to keep cutting methane emissions and charting a course for carbon neutrality by 2050. And that, again, is where I say this is where people should be opening their eyes. This is an environment minister who says he cares so much about the environment, so much about the future of Canada's environment and its CO2 emissions. Yet he goes to China and doesn't, talk to them about being one of the highest polluters in the world. Canada's CO2 emissions, with all of its forestry, only puts about a 0.2% in terms of global pollution out into the atmosphere. by being net zero, yeah, it's good for the environment, but it's not really stopping anything that's already happening in the world. If Steven Guibeault really cared about the environment, he'd understand the way things work, and he'd also try to work with these outlets and organizations, especially with the provinces, to try and find ways to make it work. Given the unconstitutional nature of this latest federal intrusion into our provincial jurisdiction, our government will use every tool at our disposal to ensure these absurd federal regulations are never implemented into our province, which again goes back to Danielle's use of the what am I thinking of here? The act. I'm drawing a blank. Um, Danielle putting forth any kind of protection she can for Alberta, and boy, did I have a brain fart there, as I can't even. I almost said Reconciliation Act, but it's not. I apologize, guys. I'm still drawing a blank. What a screw up in a video. Nonetheless, it's it's um, it's heartwarming to see that a premier cares so much about our province and is willing to take a stance against the federal government. I can already feel people um, pumping the answer into the comments, and I'm sure the comments are going to be filled with it. Um, Again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know as soon as I finish this video, it's going to hit me like a nail on the head. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think down below. Was this the right move for Danielle Smith? Should she continue fighting for Alberta? Is this going to be a war that she's going to lose? A lot of people seem to think so, that the Sovereignty Act, by invoking the Sovereignty Act, there it is, that it's not really going to do anything other than, make a radical stance. Man, is my face red. Let me know if you think it's a war that we're just going on an uphill battle, that we're not going to win anything. Let me know where I can get some kind of training for my memory as well, maybe in the comments. And, if you can't laugh at yourself, what's the point in laughing at all? But ladies and gentlemen, I hope if it's the first time here this video has earned your subscription due to my faulty memory, make sure to click that subscribe bell. Come back, see another video where I can assure you my memory's in better shape. And click your bell for notifications, as the shadow bans are real these days. And YouTube is suppressing any kind of anti-Trudeau material on YouTube. So make sure to click your bell for notifications. Check back often. This channel does upload content Monday through Friday, as well as every Sunday here on the channel at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We have our weekly wrap here, where we talk about everything that's happened in the week prior, everything coming up in the week ahead, and a little bit of back and forth with you guys in the comments. And it's great to see you guys outside of a video. And again, I'll remember to be there. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'm going to go hit myself with a bat and try and get my mind back in order. I'll catch you on the next one.